Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. I'm your host, Kalisha Washington, and I am super excited about this episode today. We are going to be talking about drugs. We're going to be talking about alcohol. We're going to be talking about substance abuse in children as young as 9 years old. And I'm super excited about my guest today, Verna Boyd. She is a nurse, she is an RN. Okay. And she has experienced this on multiple levels. Not only that, she is a cancer survivor. She's a mom of four, two that she birthed and two that she inherited. She is a wife, a daughter, a sister, an entrepreneur, and she is very passionate about making sure that our youth don't abuse substances. She is the president and founder and executive director of the Wilson Raleigh chapter of Black Nurses Rock and early identification, early intervention outreach program. Verna, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on here today because my goal is to help parents be as informed as possible, make sure that they make the best decisions to help their kids be as healthy and whole as possible. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose to emphasize substance abuse.
Of course, my name is Verna Boyd. I am a registered nurse. I've been nursing for about 27 years. I was educated through Winston-Salem State University, which is an HBCU. With that, grew, loved nursing, done critical care. That was my main forte, because of critical care, you got to have a lot of, avenues that and do well. And I wanted to be able to make sure I took care of people as they needed to be taken care of. So for me, I dived in, did what I needed to do, and I continued on. As I, grew older, I started traveling because I wanted to have more time with family, and traveling allows you to do that. So with that, I moved around in Texas and Florida, North Carolina. I was everywhere, and that's a wonderful thing, because you get to meet new people, and exciting and different things happen. So with that, I moved into after traveling, I ended up with cancer. And so with that, this is like right after, COVID, and I, do the regular breast exam. We need to do the breast exams, make sure we get our mammograms, and, educate ourselves on what our body is supposed to look like. We also make sure that even if we have a mate, the mates touch you. So they may see something or find something that may be different. So don't count other people out for saying that they see something that may not be so right. And then you look into it for yourself so you'll know what's going on with you. But
Okay.
as we talk with that, we're talking about the me continuing on after cancer. I went through chemo, radiation, and it was a battle. It really was, and surgery. My mother actually had cancer as well at the same time, so we both were going through surgeries and all those things. I'm 3 years in right now, and that's a wonderful thing. My mother's cancer actually came back, but we're working on that now. She goes to surgery on Tuesday, so we pray for her.
Yeah.
With that, we continue on, and in the midst of me being sick, I said, what am I supposed to be doing? Next thing
Mm.
I know, I was already connected to Black Nurses Rock, but I actually started an organization as far as being in Wilson, North Carolina. That's the difference. This is a national organization called Black Nurses Rock. But when you found your own, as far as starting it up and getting your members and all that, that's yours. And so that's what I did. Well, early
So
I
you
didn't.
found purpose.
Yeah, the purpose and loving, what I do. So educating the community is actually what I do. I directed it towards youth more so. I do adults, children, and the youth. The youth are really, it's like they don't have a voice. They have to have a voice, and I'm giving it to them. I interview the children. I do the podcast, and I'm setting up another podcast in about another 2 to 3 weeks. I got to get the kids together. And what I'm thinking about doing is waiting until they go on the next vacation. They get a winter break and have it then, because I want some children to be there so I can ask these hard questions that nobody wants to ask them. They're going through a lot, just like we go through a lot. That stress,
Mhm.
anxiety, grief, depression, and anger, they look like they act out.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, oh, they're being so bad, but they're not being bad. It's something going on that they need to talk about, but they don't know how to express themselves. And
Yeah.
because we sometimes as parents don't take out that time to help them or let them express themselves, it goes away. They start doing stuff that they're not supposed to, digging in the cabinets, getting stuff out, and it's a problem.
I had read that during COVID, suicide rates went up for kids. Substance abuse, I'm sure, went up as well. But what made you specifically say, you know what, I want to get to these youth? And I know you're starting your education as young as 9 years old and up. What made you decide to target that?
These children, at 9 years old, they're going through already hormonal changes. That's one reason. And so because of that, it's your mind is also changing and evolving as well. So it's a lot of things that are happening sometimes in the household that nobody's aware of that they're trying to deal with. That's
Mhm.
considered stress and anxiety with kids.
Yeah.
So with that, I don't have anybody personal that it occurred with, but the stories that I've received from me dealing with people is where it came from. Dealing
Yeah.
like you go when I was working in the hospital, you talk to different parents, you deal with kids, you start finding out a lot of stuff you really don't want to know about, but you find out about it, and now I want to do something about it. Hearing
Hmm.
that a child is on something that they should not be on, and they can't stop because they don't know how, and they don't have the skills yet at all to figure out how to do something, how to change something.
Yeah. And getting that, I know part of your business is early intervention, right?
Mhm.
So helping families intervene before it gets to be a problem that's out of hand. I end up posting on Facebook and asking my friends, when did they first start drinking alcohol or using drugs or smoking weed? I know I was way behind the curve. I was 45 when I tried marijuana for the first time. I had a trip to Jamaica for my 45th birthday. I said, I'm going to smoke weed because I'm in Jamaica, right? But I did it live on Facebook, and a lot of my former students were instructing me on how to roll it, right? How to smoke it, how to inhale. I was like, how y'all
How do you know?
experts in
Hmm.
this,
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I know when I was teaching high school, I used to tell my students, it impacts your body negatively and your brain when you are young and using marijuana,
Hmm.
right? Because the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. So once you're older, once you're 30, it's legal here
Yeah.
for recreational use. And I'm from California and I live in Nevada. In both states, it's
Hmm.
absolutely legal to use marijuana for recreational reasons. It doesn't even have to be medicinal reasons. But
Hmm.
when kids are younger, it impacts them in a very negative way. Can you speak to that?
The children are, that's where the behavioral issues and mental health issues come in, because if you're putting these substances in, it's going to change your body, your mind, your physical. You're going to look different. And because remember, they're changing as well as using. So doing that, you're messing up a whole lot of stuff that should not be. The children, if we can catch it ahead of time, that's the early intervention. We do questionnaires, we do it's called esper, and it helps to understand where they are. We do what's called PHQ-9s and GAD-7s. Those are anxiety and depression scales. So it's like psychological things that we do as far as getting information. A lot of kids, what they call like ACEs, childhood instances where they have had trauma, and we want to make sure that we get to the point of like what's really happening to them so that we can stop them from doing what they're doing. Vaping is really bad. They're putting marijuana in the vape. They're thinking that, oh, vaping is fine. No, it's hurting your brain, it's hurting your heart, it's hurting your mind. I mean, just your skin, everything changes. And we have to get them to see how the change occurs. And I believe that's how it will help them to change. Also, helping them to learn self image, self resilience, respecting yourself, dealing with how to deal with certain situations and people, and that peer pressure and bullying and all the things that can occur to make them move towards it. And
Mhm.
so the ones that come that's already using it, like by the time, like I've seen mostly as I'm going through this, I'm starting to see like that like I said, the 9-year-old was like that outlier. But most time when you're the 13, the 15, then the 20-year-olds are already in it, and that's where the problem comes in because they're already in it. How do we make it stop or change? Education, intervention, discussion, communication.
When you and I were younger, we had these commercials where it was like the frying pan with the
Yeah.
egg, and they were like, "This is your brain. This is drugs. Crack fried it. This is your brain on drugs." Right, and that prevented a lot of us from wanting to get involved. I
Mm-hmm.
know for me specifically, my mom was on drugs, and she had started young. I think as like 17 or 18 with smoking cigarettes, moved on to marijuana, and then just progressed all the way to crack.
Yeah.
And she died at 39 years old, and I was 15 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up in a fire. She didn't die from the drugs directly, but after years of smoking, then when her house caught on fire, her lungs end up giving out, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so that's an unintended consequence. People don't know. People are thinking about, like, I'm probably not going to use enough drugs to die. But what if
Mm-hmm.
you impacted your body so much that it's no longer able to fight when you're
Exactly.
in another situation? And so, we have been indoctrinated. We saw those commercials all day, every day, telling you not to say nope to dope and ugh to drugs. Like, we had all the slogans. Kids
Mm-hmm.
don't have that nowadays because
Yeah.
now it's acceptable, but it also impacts kids in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as parents, I really want folks to think about what is the trajectory of what you want for your kids long term.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's body is gonna be impacted differently, right? Everybody is different. Their bodies are gonna respond to drugs differently. So how can parents start having those conversations with their kids about whether or not people around them are using drugs or
Oh,
even alcohol?
go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Raven. Uh-huh. Well, what's happening is I have, what I do is I do workshops with parents. Bring your kids, that's the main thing. The podcast for the kids is that then you specific with them and talking with them. When we do the workshops with the parents and the kids, you say, hey, we're talking about different children using drugs, different youth in already doing it. Then you ask, the parents, we know that you may be or you may not be using substances, but the thing is that we want to make sure that the children are not doing it. And take it out of the house, put it in the lockbox. I give the lock boxes and to everybody. You can put your regular medication in it or whatever you consider your holistic medicine, that kind
Mhm.
of thing. And to help them to learn how to keep the children safe. We have the workshops, I think, help the best because we have telephone calls afterwards in the one-on-one conversations. So that's where we get to the point. That's where we start referring to treatment. I have a young man that I'm working with and his mother and father right now, and we are talking about family counseling. The problem is that he is more so aggressive, and I made sure that he's not hitting the mom, and things like that, because children sometimes they'll lash out, and they'll lash out where they beating the stew out of a mom. I know
Mhm.
a mother here, in North Carolina, who she actually ended up killing her son because
Mm.
he was on what is it, embalming fluid.
Wow.
That they can get embalming fluid. People sell it. You put it, in the weed, and what happens is, they smoke it. They start being trippy. They changed a whole lot. So when he changed, he would end up coming. He had beat her. He had broke her arm one time. And she was a license to carry individual. And I don't know if she got the license to carry prior to the situations or after, but she was a license to carry individual. He came into the house. He bust down the door, and she had to shoot him, and she killed him.
Wow.
She
First of all, it's already traumatic to lose your kid, but then to have to take your kid's life, I
Yeah,
can't even imagine.
yeah,
But when I got my first firearm license, I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and my instructor there said, "Do not get a gun unless you're going to be okay with killing a kid." Now, he didn't say your kid, but killing a kid, because kids are the ones, he said, it's usually 13, 14-year-olds who are breaking into people's houses,
yeah,
and they look like grown people
yeah.
coming through your window, and you shoot them, and then you find out they're 13 or 14. Can you live with that? He said, if you can't live with that, then don't even get a gun. Don't carry a gun.
Yeah.
But I can't even imagine what it's like to know that you had to kill your own child.
Yeah,
You know, but
she still deals with it today. They actually started, her and a few other moms who have had their children, affected by drugs, fentanyl, and all these opioids out here, and they started what's called Moms on a Mission. I
yeah,
collaborate with them sometimes, and with that, they are also attempted to make that impact in the community because their sons are not here. And
yeah,
if we can, like I said, we can reach them, if we can talk to them, we can talk to the parents and get people to change what they're doing, their mindset of what they're thinking is considered right.
yeah.
Because everybody is not brought up the same. A lot of things that's going on we don't know about. So we're hitting people right face to face, on surface, boots on the ground, talking. And when you talk to people, sometimes they'll let it out, sometimes they won't.
Yeah.
So, with fentanyl had killed so many people in this area and everywhere in the United States. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's why they have the fentanyl is being given, but it's not fentanyl from the hospital. This is a made up, concocted whatever. And, it can have oh my God, xylazine, Percocet. They say it's Percocet. Now that's the pill that they'll actually give to someone, but it has all this other stuff in it. It has had like I think some baking soda. It had oh my God, alcohol. Because what happens is like they have to mix it. And when they mix it, it's some people that we have that's undercover that purchases these, and we send them to the lab, and when they send them to the lab, it's the state lab, and they break it down to tell us what's in there. And
Yeah.
we get a report every month about what's in there. So we can tell the people, be careful.
Because you never know who's being greedy and just wants to make more money. And
Yeah.
so just don't get me started on the food industry, but the food industry also puts stuff in your food to make you addicted
Yeah.
to the food and the different things that you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just like that, also you have people who are selling drugs who are they want you to be addicted. They
Mm-hmm.
want to have a repeat customer. And
Yeah.
so if they have to put something in there that's going to help you become addicted, help you want more of it, they
Mm-hmm.
will.
Yeah.
And because they want to just make sure that you're coming back to them. If you get that high and you get it really quickly, but if they had to put foreign substances in there in order to get that for you, you never know how your body's going to react to that.
And that's how.
And even if you've been okay in the past, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you're going to get the same quality of what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I know that you and I had mentioned, I had talked about a couple of days ago, DMX.
Yeah.
He thought he was smoking weed, had
Mm-hmm.
his weed less laced with crack, then addicted to crack for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of his life, and
Yeah.
end up being that battle. And so I'm sure you've seen it all as a nurse of
Mm-hmm.
people that come in not intending to be addicted to a substance, but are addicted to something that they didn't even know they were even trying.
Yeah, there you go. That's because it can be. I mean, they phentermines I've seen in there, you name it, just barbiturates. All this is mixed into one, saying that this is a Percocet. So in melatonin, that makes you, sleepy, relax, all that. Now they don't know that this is what they're doing. And
Mhm.
so, even a piece of a pill to a kid, remember that, height, weight, body frame, everything is way less. So if you give that to them, put it in their drink. That's what, don't drink nothing that's not sitting in front of you, and
Yeah.
make sure you keep it. And if it's not in front of you and you go away, throw it away. That's it.
Man,
Throw it.
You know, the more we start talking about it, my mind is just racing on this because we saw that in the Diddy documentary,
Yeah.
right? People were having their drinks spiked with stuff they
Mm.
didn't know.
Yeah.
And you heard that in the Bill Cosby trials. You know, they were talking about women where I had a glass of wine. I've had wine before, never had a problem with it, but I drank this glass of wine and now I can barely, control myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you also, as telling you have to be careful who people are associating with,
Be associated with.
who
Yeah.
your kids are around.
And the thing about it is, you sometimes some of the people you would never think that they would do this to someone, and just because you're addicted, why would you want to make me addicted? But
Yep.
it happens. It happens. Crabs in a barrel kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, because I'm doing it, I want you to do it. We could do it together. No,
Mhm.
we're not doing this together. So we gotta build. What I'm doing is building up that mind of these young people. So when they are faced with these things, that they can fight back with their mental mindset being strong and able to say, no, I'm not doing that, or and then tell somebody about it.
Yeah.
I was exposed to such and such. I had a conversation with about five kids day before yesterday, talking to them about those substances, and said, has anybody, offered this to you? One said yes, 14. And I said, okay. I said, so what did you do? He said, I didn't do it. I didn't want to. And so I just, let it go. I said, and that's somebody that you might not want to be around, because that means that they probably are doing it. If they may have not have done it with you right then, but at some point it's going on. And
Yeah.
so you got to be careful.
With you being a medical professional, we got to have this conversation. I remember when my daughter was like, I don't know, 13, they started asking me to step out of the room, the,
Mhm.
the doctors. And I hated it because I was like, what she got to tell you that she can't tell me?
Can't tell.
And I'm like, she wouldn't even be here if I didn't have the insurance, right? And I have a lot of friends who are in that same boat who are like, why I have to step out? This is
Yeah.
my kid.
Mhm.
But if your kid doesn't feel comfortable having that conversation with you as the parent,
Mhm.
but they have it with a medical professional, it
Mhm.
can save their lives,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
so I'm sure you have kids who are having conversations with you that they don't feel safe having those conversations with their parents. And that's another thing, parents have to make it where kids do feel safe talking to them about it, where they're not going to be in trouble because they say, hey, I smoked weed, or
Mhm.
this person, offered me weed, but what, or any other kind of drugs or a pill or a drink or whatever. But we have to, as parents, make a safe space for our kids
Mhm.
to have those conversations. But even if they don't feel safe having that conversation with you, if they can have it with a medical professional who can at least tell them and give them instruction and help them see why
Mhm.
it's important for them to say no to those drugs, I
Mhm.
think that could help save kids' lives.
It can. It can. And that's the thing. We got to build them up. People are forgetting that they are their own person. Remember, children can be emancipated, I think, 16. I think they do it younger than that sometimes, depending upon what the situation is.
Hmm.
But so if they can think clear and be who they are, they can stand up and say no.
Yeah.
So, and to a parent, that's just like, we're not even gonna get into, sexual abuse and molestation and all those things, because sometimes those things are happening. And then the outlet is, well, I'm gonna get high.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about this, and that's a bad thing. But if we can get that information out of them and then get help, that's where it starts. That's where the whole trajectory will change.
Yeah, that's so important because you have kids who have experienced something negative at home. Sometimes they become runaways. Sometimes they turn to prostitution. I live in Las Vegas. We have a lot of prostitution here, and
Mhm.
some of these babies look really young who are
Yeah.
walking up and down these streets.
Hmm.
And most of the time, they have been sexually abused as a kid. The reason why they end up turning to that, but they also are turning to drugs to like numb themselves. And then there's also the back and forth between, was it the mental illness that caused the drug use or
Hmm.
and self-medicating for that, or was it the drug use that caused people to have developed these mental illnesses? Can you speak to like how mental illnesses play a part in this whole trajectory?
Okay. What people with mental health issues, it can be like we talked about, the depression, anxiety, stress, the bipolar, PTSD, Then PTSD could be something that happened to you when you were younger, and it continued on through your life. Your mind never got over that situation. When you're dealing with mental health, sometimes it's not a clear picture in that person that they understand sometimes what they're doing, but they don't know the so to say with how to say I'm not gonna change what I'm doing. So if you introduce these things to somebody who has mental health issues, the problem is that they cannot discern what is right or wrong. Sometimes we have to see, like sometimes they want to medicate kids, right, with because of what they say ADHD and all that. Sometimes kids are really just being kids, with that. You don't They sit in front of games, throughout the day instead of going outside.
Yep.
And that being outside will help, children that have issues where they don't read well. A lot of people don't sit down and help a child to read. It doesn't take much. It could take 5 minutes out your day to help them when they have those challenges of not being clear minded, so to say. Because it's nothing. Mental health issues, all of us got mental health issues. Okay, each one of us has something that's going on, and it may be a light part and it may be heavy, because some people, cerebral palsy, and it's real bad, where they cannot function, and so, and they, what they call it, the scale. I always forget the name of the scale, but it's the scale that they put you on that says how bad it is. But
Mhm.
that when people take out the time and try to make sure where somebody is and how to teach them how to control that situation, everything can be controlled, as long as we focus and get it together. It's a lot of children that have that the high scale, you know what I'm saying? And when that happens and somebody just takes that minute out, you see them function just as normal. So it's
Mhm.
not, it's what people around them put on them. It's not them. It just
Yeah.
like in school, that same thing. The teacher may find that they do an evaluation and they say, it's a behavioral health issue. The child, comes in, they lash out, but we don't have anybody in there for them to have an outlet with. The social workers in schools, and social work is one of them. And there's 700 kids in the school.
Mhm.
Ain't no way she's gonna be able to work with all those kids. And so with that, this is how we are coming into the schools. This is why we are doing this. We are going to the schools and we're having like a little session. It's most of the time at the end of the day, 2 to 3, and we hold conversations and we talk and we educate and help them to understand about this drug addiction and issues that they cannot change for other people, but they can change it for themselves. Because
Yeah.
everybody, they say mental illness, mental illness. It's a lot of mental health issues in all people. And we have that challenge of saying, well, what's wrong with me? That kind of thing. Well, I'm not thinking so clear. People have foggy brains and all those things. It's a lot of stuff that's going on. So we have to try to weed through what's happening and then get to the actual surface of what's really going on.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about how important it is for parents
Mm-hmm.
to build that confidence in their kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for them to have the conversations, but it's also important for them to build their confidence in themselves so that they can say no to somebody who's offering them something that they don't need.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can have those conversations with people and say, no, I'm not interested in that. And they don't feel like they have something to prove to somebody else. I had a conversation with one of my best friends today, and he was saying that he started drinking, I think, wine first at around 12 or so. And then his two of his cousins, who are his like favorite cousins, they started drinking beer around the same time. So they started making fun of him because he was drinking wine coolers. And then they're like, man, you on wine coolers? We on this beer. So then he started drinking beer. Well, it ended up being very much out of control for him. He ended up in a situation where he ended up in AA classes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And had a DUI.
Mm-hmm.
So you never know down the line how this is going to impact other people when when you're putting pressure on somebody to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding so much more. There are people who are just saying absolutely no to alcohol as a whole. And the reason why I know that I didn't get started I didn't try smoking weed until I was 45 is because of the addiction of my mom and
Mhm.
people and aunts and uncles and stuff around me. I
Mhm.
didn't want any part of that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to become addicted the way they were addicted.
Yeah.
And
It
so
makes.
because of that, I chose to abstain. And I smoked weed that one time in Mexico, I mean Jamaica, and I was like, I don't really need to do that again. I
Mhm.
didn't see the value in it, but I also didn't have anybody around me trying to pressure me to
To
try it.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you talk about confidence, okay, what if, okay, some of the issues I run into, the parents don't have confidence in themselves. So they can't build confidence in their children if they don't have it for themselves.
True.
It goes backwards a lot. And you look at the parent and you say, oh Lord, this is rough. And
Yeah.
so we have to get those children to see, I am good, I am someone, I can do this, I can change, I am worth taking out the time to do something for myself. I am worth that. And so we have to help build worth in them. So that's what made me start helping the adults and the children,
Yeah.
because you don't realize that they don't have the confidence themselves. They don't know how to build themselves up.
True.
Yeah.
True. I remember my last job, I was assistant principal at a performing arts high school in Los Angeles. And I mean, we had 18-year-old kids who were addicted to heroin. I was
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
heroin?
Hmm.
In my mind, that's like Richard Pryor. That's like 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 70-year-old drug. That's not an 18-year-old Armenian kid.
Hmm.
But you're strung out on heroin,
Yeah.
and they are. And because of whatever influences around them or whatever pain that they're trying to cover up and mask in themselves,
Hmm.
they're utilizing drugs that they're going to get addicted to and can't get off. They
Can't get off.
don't have the control.
It's when we start to see this situation, it's really time for everybody to get to work. And that is why I'm doing this. And the nurses that I have with me, they're just as strong as I am, saying we need to stop this. Sometimes, okay, it's a young child that I know, okay, well, she's an adult now, but sick all the way through her life, taking medication through her life. As she got older, found out she had lupus. Remember, lupus causes a lot of pain, right? People try to
Mhm.
smoke weed to alleviate that pain. Then they start taking medications to alleviate that pain. Then they're stuck. So, patients that have these issues and nobody's addressing what the real issue is, it gets out of hand, because of course you want the pain to stop. Nobody wants to be in pain. I understand that.
Yeah.
But we have to let, like, when they go to the doctor, let's say it like this. Okay, they go to the doctor and they don't look like a professional anything, or they do look like a professional something. People get judged by what they look like,
Mhm.
and then how much help they may or may not receive.
True.
That is a bad situation. And
Yeah.
we have to change what these doctors or whoever, psychologists, all these different people are thinking about when they see these people. If they come in dirty, unwashed, hygiene bad, no matter what, if they say, I'm hurting, I'm dealing with something, refer them to somebody who can help them. It's pain clinics everywhere.
Yeah.
People can go to pain clinics. It's family counseling. It's therapy for the person, just the individual. So we have to open up the doors to allow them to feel comfortable enough to go to that next level person. So here I am talking, telling people it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to see a counselor. It's okay to talk about your parent. If you feel like it was a problem with your parent and that's why you feel like your mindset is off, talk to somebody about it. Get it out. Get that parent in there if they're not deceased or anything, so
Yeah.
that conversation can be had with someone that may be able to help you get through it. But if
Yeah.
nobody ever addresses these issues, they're going to stay right there.
Yeah. And do you see that it is more generational? Like if you have parents who use drugs, their kids are now using them. Because I see it both ways. I see sometimes it's parents are using drugs and their kids are using them, or parents using drugs and kids refuse to use them because they saw what happened with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which I don't know which one is more prevalent. Are people more, if their parents were using drugs
Mm-hmm.
or alcohol, does that mean that the kid is more likely to use or not use?
Well, first, alcohol is usually the first avenue that they go down because it's so accessible in the
Yeah.
home. You go to Auntie such and such house, and there it is. And that's supposed to be a safe place.
Hmm.
Most of the time, you will see that some of the parents have used, and then here's the child using. I know a little young lady, and her mother actually died of fentanyl overdose, and
Wow.
then she's still smoking weed. She said, I want to quit. I want to stop. I said, the only way you're going to stop is to get yourself under control, change your mindset, do something else, exercise, eat differently, and stop the substances. Cigarettes, just as bad. Nobody's talking about cigarettes, but the government's still selling them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So they constantly making money off of these situations.
Hmm.
And so, with that, we have to be the ones to say, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then figure out, read and get information on how to stop. Go to the courses and educational events that we have, so that you'll be able to get the information, because we give all kinds of information on vaping, marijuana itself, heroin, any drug that you could think of. We have the information for you. We talk about domestic violence, rape, all the things that could cause harm. We go, okay, it's ladies that I know, and it's men too, but these places are like centers of ministry where they can go and have a safe space to be. And so we go there also and talk to them. Now, most of them have already been on substances. They could be anywhere from, you have to be, I think, 18, and it goes all the way through. But most of the time they're in that 18 to 25, and they're in there stuck and using whatever substances. And most of the time they say, well, my mother was using, my dad was using, somebody was around them that had this problem. It's sometimes even grandma. And so all
Mhm.
these things, they need help. They want to talk to somebody. And so
Yeah.
that conversation helps them to change, people crying and everything. And then we get into what we can do to help ourselves. How can you help yourself to change this situation when you leave this place? Because they get to stay at the place that I'm talking about for a year, $700 for 1 year, but you have to follow the rules. And the thing is that you should come out changed. Now, I haven't seen anybody come out yet, so because the ones that I know, or just kind of get in there. So I go like every quarter to see what's going on and get some more education to them.
Yeah. And that's another thing, is that you have so many people that those programs, if you're not committed, you can't be there,
Yeah.
and you have to have a strong why. You have to have a strong why about why you want to get off drugs, why you want to, leave the alcohol behind. And I think a big part of that is when we talk about instilling that confidence in kids from the womb. Start speaking affirmations to your children. My daughter has affirmations for each kid. Each one of her kids begin with the first letter of their name, that she uses that alliteration. But she's having them from the time she was pregnant with them. She's speaking these affirmations to them,
Mhm, mhm.
and because of that, they're building that confidence. And I know that, for example, my grandmother who raised me, she always spoke positively to me,
Yeah.
and because of that, I had confidence that was through the roof. So
Mhm.
you couldn't tell me that I should use drugs. You couldn't tell me, but I didn't have a problem telling somebody no.
Yeah.
But you have kids who, if you're constantly putting your kid down, if you're constantly fussing at them, yelling at them, telling them you're bad,
Mhm.
becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you tell kids you are a bad kid,
Mhm.
or you just like your daddy, or anything like that, a lot of times your words are building who they become.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you gonna turn out to be just like this person. Well, you are creating that. You're creating that as a parent. And so we have to choose to build our kids up in a positive way that's going to help them be able to make best decisions in the
Mhm.
future. And it comes from showing that love to them. Most of the time kids are just looking for love.
They looking for
And
love.
they are when
Somebody
they
to
are
hear
frustrated.
them. Yes.
Say that again.
I said, yeah, they looking for love and they need somebody to hear them.
Yep.
They want to use their voice and they want to say something. They don't know how to say everything. It's a book that I give to the young people. It's called Life Skills. It's for every 12-year old, and over, that kind of thing. And it talks to them and tells them what they should know about self confidence and helping to learn yourself and all those things. And I said what I was going to do. This is something new. I wanted to do, like, I give it to them individually to allow them to read, but I want to do a book read with them, a group of kids, and start making it where they read it with me so that we can get those questions answered, because it also helps to let them know, it tells them an affirmation: I'm growing and learning every day. I can do things. It says I know I can do this if I keep trying. I can overcome any challenge I face as long as I keep trying. All those kind of things they need to know, because when they're struggling, we don't even know sometimes that they're struggling.
Yep.
And then we talk about struggling with people, struggling with school as far as reading and all those things. The next time that the parent or whoever's caring for them, grandparent, finds out that it's a problem is the time when they go to school for the evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
We got to know before then. Make
Yeah.
the child read in front of you and help them to know what the words are. If you don't even know what reading level that they're on, you're not helping them, because if
Yeah.
they can't read it correctly, they can't understand it. So we got to get them to understand what they're doing, and then go from there.
And that also brings in the importance of the adults in the school, because I was an educator, and a lot of times kids don't have the best home life, but we have the power as educators to impact our kids either positively or negatively. Like how we speak to our students, how we are showing up in their life. If we can be a listening ear for them and not just trying to penalize them or get them in trouble, report stuff, some stuff. You CPS are your mandated reporters. You have to, when there's abuse, you have to report that. But not even just that. If a kid is talking about, hey, I have this friend, they're trying to pressure me to do XYZ, can you be that listening ear? Can you give them that advice on how to make sure that they keep themselves safe or to protect themselves? If you hear about a party coming up, say something,
Yeah.
because, but you have even adults who are like, oh, I ain't no snitch. I'm like, you're an adult. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, my
But
daughter, it wasn't drug related, but my daughter, when she went away to college, she got her nipple pierced. She had posted it on Instagram, and her senior year, she was at the same school that I taught at. So she had wrote on the board to follow her on Instagram. So all my students saw it, and they're all huddled up in the back of the class, like, who gonna tell Miss Washington? I'm like, what? So
mhm,
finally the kids told me, because they're all like, I ain't no snitch, I ain't no snitch. I'm like, bruh, like, I don't know what it is, but just tell me. So they told me, and I was like, she's 18. Like, it's not a big deal. I don't care. Then
yeah.
I went to my partner teachers and I was telling them, and one of them was like, oh, yeah, I knew about that, but I ain't no snitch.
Wow. Oh, I mean, and that's the thing. We gotta put people and let them open their mouths and speak. Stop
Yeah.
making it seem like you snitching or telling on
But
somebody.
be an adult.
Yeah, but sometimes they can't because they still are very immature. You don't really, oh my God, with people, so many adults are so very immature. They,
Yeah.
when you hold a conversation with them, you can tell by their verbiage and the things that they say, and you don't want to ever make them feel as if they are not expressing themselves correctly, but
Yeah.
the things that they say, that is third grade level stuff. And but what do? You
Yeah.
help them to get to that next phase, and that next phase is, holding a conversation with them and say, maybe you shouldn't have, said what you said to your child, this might be a different way. So give them another way to see things, because my perspective and your perspective may be two different things. So we have to always remember that part, because how
Yeah.
I see it and how you see it, it may be two different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had read that, nicotine changes how the brain wires itself. Do
Yeah.
you have any information about how even just nicotine could be bad for kids? And even when they're using marijuana and they use like some of the tobacco based papers that they use to roll them with,
Mhm.
that also has nicotine in it, and how those things can be bad, or how vaping can be bad on their bodies.
For nicotine, weed, any inhaled substance is bad for your teeth. That's first. And so when you talk about your teeth, you're talking about you. You know
Hmm.
what you look like when you come to somebody. It stains your teeth. It makes you look as if you're older. People's teeth should not be yellow. They should be white. And they need to understand that it weakens the gums. It makes it where there's issues with the gums. So if you have not gone to the dentist, you need to go to the dentist and
Yeah.
see what's going on inside your mouth, especially if you're a smoker. The brain, it makes it where the brain thinks slower. And that's a bad situation. So if you smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke, constantly smoking something, each time you pulling things away from your body that your body needs mentally, physically. The bones, like I said, the bones get weak. Your lungs are affected. When you breathe in and out, in and out, it should be a very good deep breath. After a certain point, you may not feel it now, but you will have issues with that deep breathing in and letting it out, because your body, it's cells that are deep within, that when you, if they call bronchioles, the small little
Hmm.
cells that they're on the end of the lungs, and when you breathe they open up and they pull back, you know what I'm saying, and close as you're breathing. So if you cannot take a deep breath, that's a problem. People have
Hmm.
coughs. You cough, all this mucus is building up in your lungs. Your liver is affected. Everything gets filtered through your liver. And
Yeah.
so all these things are causing problems. You can get cancer. Oh my God, we do that kind of thing. You're of harming your eyes. Smoke going into your eyes constantly, daily, all the time is a problem. You cannot think that these things are not affecting your sight, your mind, your skin. Your skin gets very dry. When you do these things, it's pulling away from the oils in your skin. I mean, we talking about uh, just being healthy, taking a walk. If when you attempt to take a walk, when you're using smoke, remember you're putting smoke in your system. If you're in a
Hmm.
fire, you are trying to get out of smoke. So when you're smoking, you're putting it in there and
Yeah.
just willingly putting smoke in your body. And
Yep.
you believe that it's not going to affect you, you really need to think again, because it's really harming you in all the ways that I've just said, plus more. That's just giving you a few things. Your smell changes, the taste, what you taste. Like if you eat what has a really good heavy taste? Fried chicken, we'll say that. It's really good. It has good flavor, but the flavors change when you smoke.
Mm.
But who knows that? Because if you're already a smoker and you're eating food, you want more salt, season, all this stuff on it, because you really are not tasting it and you're not smelling it either.
Wow. Yeah, I read that for adult smokers, if they switch from cigarettes to vaping, it may reduce their exposure to some toxins. But for kids who had never smoked before and they start vaping, it is more dangerous for them.
Vaping is
And
50, I think it's is it 50 times more. And I might be saying it high, but than cigarettes. It's ridiculous how much worse vaping is.
yeah, because it's concentrated.
Hmm.
And because they can hide it and they can do it. Like when I worked at a high school and kids would vape, you go in the bathroom and you're like, did I just see smoke? But it's gone. Like you see it and it's gone.
Yeah.
And so then you're not able to just smell the marijuana in the room. You're not able to know that kids are using it. So then they can sneak and use it even more frequently.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
that's a big problem now. When you start talking about them doing stuff in the school, sex in the school, that these teachers have got to, look, but it's not their fault. We can't watch them constantly. We're there to teach. And then we got to also, so to say, babysit. Not fair, not fair. The thing is that we somehow have to get the parents and the teachers and the social workers and people together in order to make the circle turn like it's supposed to. And
Yeah.
that's not happening. It's a break here, a break there, and this is the problem because the kids are the ones that's falling through those cracks. So what,
And,
mhm.
what's interesting is you'll have parents who smoked weed growing up, but the weed has changed.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not the same product that you had
Mhm.
back then that they're giving to people today.
Mhm.
Because even I remember with my son, when he first started smoking weed at like 20, he's
Mhm.
like, I can't get mad. When I'm smoking weed, I can't even get mad if I want to. But
Mhm.
now he is angry,
Yeah.
more often than he was. And I'm
Mhm.
like, is there something in the marijuana that's causing that? And I have a cousin who's an addiction therapist for the VA. And I remember her saying that she's had young kids who are in the military, just barely even old enough to be there. They said they hadn't used anything except marijuana. They hadn't used stronger drugs,
Mhm.
but now they have these mental illnesses that they're carrying, like schizophrenia and things like that,
Yeah.
that have been induced by the marijuana use. And because anything in America, when somebody can see an opportunity to make money from it, they're going to try to make the maximum money that they can. And with that, they're probably fertilizing the marijuana to make it grow faster. There's no telling what they're doing to make it grow faster and things like that so that they can make more money.
Yeah.
But because of that, there's things that are getting into our bodies that cannot be good for us.
Toxic. All those things are so toxic. And, sometimes, like I said, we all have mental illnesses, and what happens is when you're using the substances, you're making it come alive even more so.
Yeah.
Like you said, the schizophrenia, like we said, the bipolar, those things, it can be controlled, but it's still through medication. But the thing is that it's a controlled medication through a doctor. When
Yeah.
you start doing holistic stuff, because that's what things from the earth. These things, weed is from the earth, cocaine is from the earth. All this
Mhm.
stuff is really trees that's growing in the earth. But the
Mhm.
thing is that people have taken it and demonized it by making it where adding stuff to it. If you were to take cocaine, we go all the way back to the Bible. You put stuff on the person's skin. You're actually like an anesthetic for people to keep them not feeling what that pain was. It numbs the body. Cocaine
Yeah.
numbs the body. And the thing is that we done turned it all around, misconstrued it, and tore it up. And so the things that these people are using are were good things when it way back, but now it's just a dangerous substance in the community.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think about just all over the country, we have now where they're recognizing the opioid, problem epidemic. But we had a similar phase back in the 80s and 90s with crack cocaine.
Okay.
But because the predominant group of people that were using crack were Black people, and poor people could afford it, you know um then the government didn't do anything about it except raise what the penalties were for being caught using it or selling it.
Yeah.
But now with opioids, it's
Mhm.
predominantly white people who are
Yeah.
addicted to opioids. So
Mhm.
now they're like, oh, this is a crisis, we need to do something about it, we need to
Mhm.
help people, we need rehab and
Yeah.
things like that. And it's a good thing to have that rehab,
Mhm.
but we also needed that ages ago, because I think about my parents' generation is the generation that was on crack.
Yeah.
Right? And what if you had given them some kind of rehabilitation back then so that we didn't have to be raising ourselves?
Yeah, because that's what's happening. I mean, right now I know a 9-year old and a 13-year old. They are raising themselves. Their mother sleep. You deal with them. She sleep 90% of the time. You talk to the children. Where's your mom? She sleep. Okay. And then has gotten locked up multiple times. And the thing is that it's trying to get the money to get the medicine. So
Yep.
they instead of dealing with the problem, knowing that you're addicted to a substance and doing something about it. So our thing is, that trauma informed care. We want to talk about the trauma that occurred in your life and give you the information to help you to change. And
Yeah.
so, change is not change until you change. So, and I say that often. because we all need to make changes, to better ourselves, to better the lives of other people. When we talk with people or connect with others, we always have to make sure that we leave them with something positive. Just to let them know, you are on the right track. You're doing good. Don't let anybody steer you uh, to go in that wrong direction. What is the wrong direction? What's surrounding you that's not benefiting you,
Yeah.
kind of thing, and that's the thing, because each person, they may think that, grandma drinking a beer every night before she go to bed is okay. It's really not okay. And so shoot, when I get older, I'm gonna drink me a beer too. That kind of thing. But we don't want that. So we gotta tell them, that's not the right way to do things.
Mhm.
Even though she's doing it, that's the choice that she made. So you have to make those different choices for yourself to
Yeah.
know what you can do for you.
That's so important. That's so important. I remember when I was teaching and at a certain high school, and the kids had a dress code where they couldn't wear red. But that wasn't a part of my dress code. And so my students, if I came in red, they were like, "You're not supposed to be wearing red." I said, "No, no, no. You're not supposed to be wearing red. That's not part of my dress code." And so there's some things that you have to explain to kids. It's acceptable for me to do this at this age. It's not acceptable for you to do that at that age. And or like if somebody has cancer or they have lupus or they have something that, or autism, even there's some marijuana that can help, kids without, they don't smoke it, but they do have it, put it in their, like whatever, to put it in the air.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Vaporizers. You talking about the vaporizers. You get it.
yeah. And so you will have that, and it's acceptable for them for that reason, but that doesn't mean it's acceptable for everybody to do.
Exactly.
And everybody's body's going to respond differently to different things. And so, as an adult, it's illegal for you to drink. Is it the healthiest thing for you to do? No. Is it the
Yeah.
best thing for your body? No. And for most people, any kind of drugs, you want to change the habit. If it's become a habit,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the legal definition for something being addicted, for somebody being addicted to something, is if they have withdrawals when they try to quit, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And so, like, we just really have to make sure that we're having those conversations with our kids, explaining the difference. If somebody's using something to help them health wise, because
Mm-hmm.
they absolutely have to have it, that's one thing. But now, for somebody else to abuse it and use it just for fun or
Yeah.
just so they can have that same feeling, that does not make it right.
No, exactly. And then we got to talk about toxic relationships.
Ooh,
Some of these young people are dealing with others, and they are dealing with even abuse, like getting beat up. Um, it's a bad situation, because you're thinking, that person, talking from the child's point of view, that person is really your friend, and they're really hurting you. They're hurting you mentally, things they say to you,
yep,
and how they treat you, uh, and then they get you to do stuff that you don't want to do.
yeah,
So helping them to understand what is considered toxic is something that we talk about also,
yep,
because all of it is mixed together. So we have to separate each one and then put it together to let them see these are problems. So in order to avoid them, these are the things that you have to do to save yourself. And it's always about self-preservation is the first rule of nature. Save yourself. And if you can do that, then you can help somebody else. And
yeah,
that's how we, help them to see it's better. You can be a nurse, you can be a newscaster, you can be, all the things that is out there to do. You could be a woodworker, you be an engineer. It's so many things you can do, but you have to do school for some of these things. So,
mhm,
if your mind is not clear and you have drugs or situations in your system that do not benefit the thought process, you know what I'm saying? Then
yep,
there is a problem already. So we can't do a substance and think we're going to be able to read a book. We're going to go to sleep. We were already going to sleep anyway.
mhm,
thing is, or we're gonna be so hyper that we gotta walk because different drugs bring out speed in you. You know what I'm saying? And you want
Yeah.
to walk and move and do and all that kind of stuff. And so I forgot it used to be what were they called? They were like pills and they were actual speed. And those tablets, you can crush them up and put them in somebody's drink just as easy. And the thing is that these are the things that they have to be warned at, and then let them see. Like I have like pictures just so they can see, well, this is what it looks like. So if you ever see something that's this strange looking, because it just looks like maybe nothing, like a piece of something that's sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
know that that could be a drug. you know
Yep.
and so be careful on the things that you do and the people you're around, because you never know what they have and what
Yeah.
they're attempting to do to you.
And those toxic relationships, you just got to let them go. I was talking to somebody yesterday about, I'm like, when any relationship I had been in that wasn't ideal, I
Mhm.
asked myself, if nothing changed, would I want to live my life like this for the rest of my life?
Mhm.
Is this a relationship that I could be in for the rest of my life? And I know if I don't want it, I'm out. I'm out because
Mhm.
most times people are not going to change.
Mhm. Mhm.
Most people, if they've been in a rhythm, especially I'm 50 now, so when folks get to my age, if they haven't changed something already about themselves, they're probably not going to change unless something drastic and traumatic happens to them,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
they're not going to change for you.
Mm-mm.
They
Mm-mm.
might change for the person that comes after you. They're not going to change for you. So you got to leave those relationships because they will cause you to want to drink to get over the fact that, this person is not the ideal person that you thought they were going to be. Or they cause you to go and use drugs because you're upset about it and you want to get over this pain. No, leave that person alone.
Yeah.
Go find somebody else. You
Exactly.
know.
But people don't want to do that because if they feel like they have that control over you, now that's another thing. People want to have control over others, especially if they're people have control over them at the house. So they want to control somebody else. And so sometimes that's that manipulation type game that goes on with young people. Sometimes I've actually seen a young child be manipulative
Hmm.
just at 5. What are you doing, that kind of thing. But you have to redirect them, hey, you shouldn't do that, this is not good. You don't
Yep.
manipulate people into doing things that you want them to do.
Yep.
It's not good, because if you're doing it when you're 5, you're going to do it when you're 25.
Hmm.
So you got to be careful. Yeah, it's a lot of things that you know um children need to be educated on, youth, adults also. A lot of adults are still smoking weed, and I run into all these things, and we want people to know this stuff is not healthy for you. We have got to change what we're actually doing to our bodies and our minds, and see something different, get some sunshine, go outside, play pickle, tennis, do something, to help swim. We can swim. People don't, they don't swim like they should, all those little things that you can do to help yourself and change what's happening, besides using a substance that will harm your body.
Yep. Yep. And for those who need it, like I'm all for, I support folks using it as they need it. Recreational marijuana is legal out here, and
Yeah,
but it's still not the best thing for people. And so since it's not the best thing, if we want to live happy, healthy, and whole lives, we got to make sure that we make the decisions that are going to help us do exactly that.
exactly.
Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me talking about this. Are there any final words that you have before we end?
Yeah. Early identification, early intervention outreach program is a nurse-led nursing educational organization. What we want to do is help people to learn how to have coping skills, how to deal with situations, how to deal with behavioral health, and move forward so they don't have the trauma, and they are able to help somebody else. So you help yourself, then help somebody else. We want people to live longer, stronger, healthier lives, and we want them to be educated on what they can do to help themselves.
And where can people find you?
We are. You can go online. It's the website. It's www.eieop.org. And that is purposely done. EIEIOP helps you to remember the song from years ago when you were a kid, and that helps you to be able to know that we're good, because that was a good song that children love, and adults, everybody. And so with that, that's why we chose that.
Thank you so much. Hopefully, people found value in what we have just talked about. If you are a parent, make sure that you start having the conversation with your kids about drugs earlier than you think is necessary, because their friends are going to be talking to them about it soon.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure, even as early as elementary school, you start talking to them about it so that you can get your opinion in their minds before someone else does. Again, I'm Kalisha Washington. Thank you for watching the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. I help parents plan with purpose so that we can raise kids who are happy, healthy, and whole. Have a great day.
Thank you.